You're live.
Now 7 o'clock. President Grimmer, would you like to start the meeting?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chris. I'm calling this meeting to order. I note that we have all of our board members here. And so I'm thrown off by this president isn't supposed to make motions thing. I move to amend the agenda. Would anyone like to second that? I'll second. Thank you.
Let's make an actual motion here. Madam President, I do have a motion to amend this evening's agenda. I want to add Resolution 24-150 as a new business item under Resolution 24-149.
Can I get a motion to second, please?
And Madam President, if I may, as an item of clarification on this motion that's currently before the board to amend the agenda, just for purposes of making sure we have it in our minutes, because this does add an item of new business to the agenda. Just a question for bond counsel on this project. Dennis Otten is here with us. Just to confirm, because this does relate to a public hearing, the notice for the public hearing includes this. We're covered on our public hearing. This is just making sure that the actual confirmatory resolution is added to today's agenda, correct?
Yeah, correct, Councilor Morgan. We advertised of this in the Times and the Hamilton County Reporter, and we got back proofs of publication at least 10 days before this meeting. And so that has been taken care of.
With that, Madam President, I think you're welcome to entertain any discussion and then a vote on the motion.
Any discussion? Shall we take a vote?
You need to second it. There wasn't a second.
I'll second. I second. Oh, you got it?
Mike Antrim? Yes. Curtis Baumgartner?
Yes.
Julia Grimmer?
Yes.
Leanne Sintz?
Yes.
Mike Hall?
Yes.
This is,
Motion
can you
carried.
guys hear me?
Yes, Danielle.
Can you
we
guys hear me?
Yes, Danielle, we can hear you.
Was there a second? I did not hear a second on the motion. I just heard the motion and never a second.
Yes, the second was made by Mike Antrim, and
Okay.
roll was called, and the motion carries.
Okay.
Okay. So, first thing, approval of the minutes for September 4th's meeting.
Madam President, I motion that we approve the minutes of the Park Board meeting dated September 4th, 2024.
Any seconds out there?
I second that motion.
All right.
Mike Antrim?
Yes.
Curtis Baumgartner?
Yes.
Julia Grimmer?
Yes.
Leanne Sintz?
Yes.
Mike Hall?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, it's election of vice president. Round two.
Since we already had a motion last meeting, all we need to do is have a motion to vote and a second, and then you can vote for Curtis. Because he was already nominated last, unless there is a second nomination.
Can I get a motion to go ahead and take this vote?
So moved.
And just to state the motion for clarity's purposes, I think this motion would be to elect Curtis
Correct.
vice president. It sounds like we have a motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
Mike Antrim,
Yes.
Curtis Baumgartner,
Yes.
Julia Grimmer,
Yes.
Mike Hall,
Yes.
Leanne Zintz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Congratulations, Kurt.
Thank you.
Okay. So for old business, we have first Resolution 24-138. Bond resolution of the Parks and Recreation Board authorizing the issuance and sale of special taxing district bonds. This item is for public hearing.
You can go ahead and open the public hearing.
Okay,
And
so opened.
yes, we would. So you could open the public hearing and then state the time?
Okay, I'm opening this hearing. It is 7:07 PM. Are there any comments or public? Hearing none. I will close the hearing. And do I have a motion to close the hearing? Do I have a motion to
Approve
Yeah.
the resolution.
Yeah, I think,
approve the resolution? Okay.
I move to approve Resolution 24-138.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call for vote. Mike Antrim,
Yes.
Curtis Baumgartner.
Yes.
Julia Grimmer,
Yes.
Mike Hall,
Yes.
and Leanne Zintz.
Yes.
Okay, next item, still part of old business, Resolution 24-139. This item is also set for hearing today. And I open the floor for any input. It is 7:08. Hearing none. I close the hearing. Can I get a motion to adopt this resolution, 24-139?
I move to adopt Resolution 24-139.
I'll second that.
Mike Antrim,
Yes.
Curtis Baumgartner,
Yes.
Julia Grimmer,
Yes.
Mike Hall,
Yes.
Leanne Zintz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. So for new business, we have one item, our next item, Resolution 24-149. I'd like to open for discussion.
I think, Dennis, are you going to present on this? Is there any need to? Okay. Oh, this is the excuse me, this is me, not you. I apologize. I'm
gonna
getting
ask.
out of place, man. So this resolution is a resolution of the City of Westfield Parks and Recreation Board adopting a written policy establishing the procedures that apply to the members' participation in a board meeting by electronics means of communication. So this sets the rules as to how you would be a part of the meeting if you were off-site and how often those absences and can take place and what the regulations are for that. Does any of the board have any questions for me or council on this?
I have a question. So I'd like to have some opportunity for discussion among the board, input. I think there's opportunity for amendments to this. So procedurally, should we have discussion and then see if there's a desire to maybe perhaps postpone vote on this until the next meeting so that input can be sort of collected? Or what should we do?
Procedurally, you can certainly table this item and it could come back to the next meeting as old business. The only thing I would say, and it's not a reason not to table it if you want to have more conversation about it, most of these provisions are required by state statute in order to allow you to have remote participation. So it's not to say that there aren't provisions that might be able to be amended, but several of these probably can't be, and it's because there's a state law that puts guardrails around.
No, I understand. I'd be talking about like additions too. Like you got what's in the statute for the most part in there. I think the statute explicitly provides opportunity for greater procedural requirements to be put in place. And I think that's something we should talk about.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, certainly you could either ask for, if you felt like members of the board were prepared to debate an amendment now, you could ask for a motion for an amendment now. If you think it makes more sense to have time for board members to study the topic more, you certainly could ask for a motion to table. And then it would come back as old business at the next meeting. The only real consequence to that is that nobody can participate remotely until the policy is adopted. So the only consequence to that would mean that at the next meeting, none of you could participate remotely because you wouldn't have the policy adopted yet.
To my knowledge, that's not a concern for the next meeting. Please, I welcome any reason. Because I think for one thing, we all need a handbook on how to follow these rules in order to actually be a real functioning board. So that's one thing. But secondly, I do think that there's things I want to discuss in connection with this policy, and I don't know if other people do, but I just, as a matter of course, don't want to just put something in front of people and that's that. When it really is a policy of the board in terms of how we want to conduct ourselves and service to the community. So that's my thought.
That's absolutely the board's prerogative. So I think maybe the appropriate step then would be to ask for a motion to table.
Okay. Well, having said all that, can I get anyone willing to give a motion for that?
I move to table.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Mike Antrim,
Yes.
Curtis Baumgartner,
Yes.
Julia Grimmer,
Yes.
Mike Hall,
Yes.
Leanne Zintz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So in the meantime, can we discuss it, or do we want to, is that something where we should just be more prepared next time? For what we want to say?
The way to prepare will have to comply with the open door law. So it will primarily be each of you sort of preparing your thoughts individually and then being prepared to come back and have that discussion at the next public meeting.
We are able to provide comments to legal counsel for the city, though, correct? I mean, that would be appropriate.
Correct. And any of you can have sort of one-on-one conversations. The open door law doesn't impact not with each other. You have to be careful about having conversations with each other outside of public meetings about the subject matter. But each of you can have your individual conversations with counsel. Each of you could have individual conversations with staff. You just have to be careful about getting multiple of you in a room together or on an email string together to talk about the substance of something that needs to happen in a public meeting.
So if we're going to talk about something, do we need to do it? We need to kind of wait until we have our sort of points prepared? Like all of us have the opportunity to do that, or?
So it's at
we
your
just talk about it
discretion, right? I mean, things get amended and voted on the same day all the time. But if you don't feel like, so for example,
No, I guess
this-
can I rephrase my question, because I wasn't clear. I mean, if we have things we want to talk about, do we have to come prepared with the language that we're proposing as an amendment to sort of address what we're discussing, like the point you might be making,
Yeah,
you know?
generally, yes.
Okay.
And that's something you can work with counsel in advance of the meeting to have
Okay.
prepared.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can. This is Danielle Carey Tolan for the record, since I am virtual. Sorry about that. I had another event I had to attend to tonight. Also, just to keep this in back of mind for you guys as we move forward. Your bylaws are going to be much different than this virtual policy. This is a virtual policy just to participate in meetings, right? Your bylaws will outline probably more what you're probably thinking of, Julia, of how you guys conduct with each other, what, the things that you can and cannot do and what you guys are responsible for as a parks board. This policy is in line with the exact policy that is adopted by the city council. This is how we drafted it on our end. And again, just like what was stated earlier, this is something just so that you guys can join a meeting remotely rather than the additional policies and procedures as you act as a board. So we can always amend things. We can always amend things prior to the meeting before we come in, right? As long as we're prepared, or you guys can have discussions out there on the docket. Does that help clear that up?
Yeah, no, that helps. So is the preference to keep this, like a policy of this nature kind of consistent across the city? So really, like, insofar as there's discussion to be had, it's in connection with the bylaws, or like, is that kind of what you're suggesting? Because in that case, I mean, that would be helpful to know.
Yeah, this is like, and Chris, you can chime in as well. This is in line with the adoption of how we operate other virtual meetings. So you as participants can participate in the meetings, right? And it just aligns with Indiana code. The bylaws are a totally separate thing, which is much more robust. Chris, it's multiple pages long, like
Yes.
40, 70 pages long, right?
No,
Which has
not quite
bylaws.
that many, Danielle. The entire board packet is probably that long. The bylaws are a working document at the moment as they were written with other objectives in mind at the time they were written. They are a working document. This policy, like Danielle stated, is specifically written so you guys can meet virtually. If one of you has to be gone, it is, like Danielle stated, it is very much across the board with all of our boards. So the council, Board of Public Works, this is a policy to cover that so these things can happen without there being any hiccups and without us operating outside of Indiana code. Does that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
I've never misunderstood that. But we'll talk about it next time.
Okay. Well,
I think, is there a director's report tonight?
We still have we have the amended resolution of 24-150.
Oh, that was it.
Which
Okay.
Dennis Otten is here to present on. So I will turn it over to Dennis.
Good evening, members of the board. Good to see you all again. Are we able to get that resolution up on the screen at all, Chris? If not, it's no big deal.
We do not have a digital copy at the moment for the screen, but if I remember correctly, all board members do have a written copy in front of them at this time.
First off, apologies for not having this on the official agenda at the time it was prepared. We had submitted the resolutions, but had overlooked submitting this one. This is referred to as a confirmatory resolution. You may recall at your last park board meeting, we had before you what we call a declaratory resolution. Anytime that a park board does a bond project, such as the one that you're undertaking, the process is the adoption of a declaratory resolution, then notice of hearing on the projects which you've had, bond resolution, appropriation resolution, and a confirmatory resolution. That's what this resolution is. And what it simply states is you adopted the declaratory resolution, you've held your public hearing, and you've taken any comment, you've considered the evidence presented, and you are confirming what you said in the declaratory resolution, which was we find a need for the projects and we want to proceed with them. That's kind of a high level. So it's just part of the process. Interestingly, sanitary districts or some other statutory bodies that follow the same declaratory confirmatory process. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. would consider it covered, Donnie, by what we already did with the bond resolution. I mean, we've taken comment on the resolution, which includes that projects, so I think we would be fine.
So the conversation we're having is, you may not be strictly necessary to open the floor for additional public comments, but if you wanted to just make sure you've crossed every T and dotted every I, you could go ahead and open a public hearing, see if there are any comments on the confirmatory before entertaining motions and seconds and a vote.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think that would be a good idea. You may as well, yeah.
So I'll open a hearing if there's any public comments on Resolution 24-150. Okay. Hearing closed. Can I get a motion to take a vote?
Mike Antrim.
Oh, we need a motion to approve, right? I move to approve resolution number 24-150.
Second.
Mike Antrim.
Yes.
Curtis Baumgartner.
Yes.
Julia Grimmer.
Yes.
Mike Hall.
Yes.
Leanne Sins.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So it's director's report for this evening. Bring you up to speed on a couple of projects we have going on, but before we do that, I do want to give a public commendment to our maintenance staff who spent quite a bit of time cleaning up our trails and our parks after what we had over the weekend. They spent quite a bit of time on Friday and then some time over the weekend itself actually cleaning up trees on the Monon, and then spent the good majority of the beginning of the week cleaning up down trees in the parks and on the trails. So that crew is very small, but they work very hard to make sure that our parks are taken care of. So I wanted to make sure that they're publicly acknowledged for that hard work. With that said, some of the projects we have going on and where they are, we'll talk first about Simon Moon Phase 1. The pedestrian bridge that will go over the pond was set last week. They're working diligently to bring in the last bit of fill dirt as well as topsoil that is needed to complete grading. That should be done by the week of October 21st. Planting has begun, so the wetland planting started, the perimeter pond wetland planting. It started this week and should last through this week and into next. Turf around in the turf areas around the park will follow, and then the trees and reforestation will happen in late October and early November. With our rains, the pond depth did increase by 6 inches, which is a good thing considering we've been in a huge drought, and one of the keys to this project is making sure that the pond fills up with water. So it's a good thing that we're getting some rain. Hopefully we'll get a little more. We have been promised by Norcon that they are going to drill a well on site and hopefully supplement rainwater with a little bit of well water to help fill that pond up a little quicker. We did close down the splash park for the season on the 27th, as well as the jet fountain at Grand Junction. We closed that as well. We finished up the event season at Grand Junction Plaza, so the stage covering was taken down. We had a very successful event season at Grand Junction with over 60 events. The last one was last Thursday, which was our last farmers market. We will see a few more in the winter. We have, at the end of October, we have our trick or treat event going on. And then finally, we'll have Westfield and Lights in December, which will happen with the lighting of the tree, along with also the ice ribbon. That's the next big project in front of our team, which is installing the ice ribbon. Installation of that will take place in November, first week. And the opening day of the ice ribbon will be the 23rd of November. If you guys haven't experienced it, I encourage you all to come out and participate. It's a lot of fun. And then finally, we are as you guys know, we're in the midst of the master plan right now. And as part of that, we have a public survey. That public survey went live last Friday. It will be open to the public through October 11th. As of right now, last check, we had almost 200 participants in that survey, which is better than the last time we did this. I think the last time we did it, we only had 136 responses. So that has been blasted out over all of the city's social media, as well as WYSI has also sent that out in a blast to its entire membership. And it will also be sent out in a few other avenues as well. So we're trying to blanket the community as much as we can to get as much input from them as to where we need to go with this master plan and in the future. So with that all said, I am happy to answer any questions that the board might have at this time for the director.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
The school newsletter, did you say you were putting that survey in the school newsletter?
Yes, that's one of the other places that will go. Kayla, Kayla Arnold, our Director of Communications for the city, is working on getting it to the schools and through
Shout out.
their social media, as well as some of their avenues to publicize things. So we're trying to get that into the schools' hands as well. So yes.
Thank you.
Chris, I wonder if you would just give us a quick overview of the projects that the bonds are being issued for. Just, not great detail, but just give me kind of a summary of
Absolutely.
of, what we're talking about.
Absolutely, and it's a wonderful question. And so the bonds are set up for, the bond is set up for two different projects. The first project is the continuation of the Simon Moon project, Simon Moon Phase 2. Phase 2 will incorporate mostly, Phase 1 did everything earthwork-wise. Phase 2's will incorporate mostly vertical work. So we will add a shelter house. The playground will be replaced as it's aging. We will add an outdoor education pavilion that will have a natural amphitheater feel to it, as well as a shelter that doubles somewhat as a stage, but also as an education pavilion, which we can use to teach outdoor education in. There will also be a large boardwalk component as that. The ADA fishing dock will be added, as well as kayak launch. So we will have an ADA kayak launch so that our residents who might need some assistance getting into the water in a kayak can have that without any trouble. And then finally, the last big component of that project is an entry boardwalk over in the northwest corner that'll be on the Midland, give you a nice view of the park as it comes in. And then the other project that's incorporated with this bond is the Park Street streetscape upgrade. So Park Street will see something similar to Georgia Street in downtown Indianapolis, where the goal is to completely resurface that in potentially a paver lay down. And then we'll put streetlights, ornamental or decorative streetlights, as well as possibly candleary or party lights that would go over the top. And it would also hopefully incorporate bollards, so that street could become a pedestrian area after a certain time each day. So it would be open to deliveries still during the day for the restaurants, but once a certain time arose, those bollards would come up and it would become a big pedestrian promenade, let's say, for those restaurants and for the public to enjoy. The reason that this project is falling under the Parks Department is because eventually when the project is done, the care of that area would actually fall under the Parks Department's purview.
Thank you.
You are very welcome, sir. Are there any other questions? All
Can I
right.
ask a quick question? Sorry.
Of course.
Has the State Road 32, when that's completed, has that landscaping already been determined? Because I remember that was going to really be beefed up too.
Yes, they're still working on some of the minute details, but yes, the 32 streetscape is part of that project, and it will incorporate street trees, both decorative street lights and decorative pedestrian lights. There'll be some paver walkway components. There will be other native plantings that hopefully will be in the median. And that is all part of that 32 project. And again, once that's all complete, that would also fall under the park's purview to maintain moving forward once that's done.
So that's an upcoming project then?
Yeah, that's an upcoming project. If I remember correctly, and please don't quote me on this, those bids, I do believe, are coming in here relatively shortly for Public Works to open. It is a cooperative project between Public Works and NDOT. And NDOT's the lead on it, but Public Works plays a role in it, obviously. And if I remember correctly, that project will go to construction next year.
Okay. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the review with the board of the salary ordinance. So every year, let me pull it up here. Every year, the city presents a salary ordinance to, let's just do it this way, to council that is adopted and approved by council. And that salary ordinance, it does not set individual salaries for an individual employee. It sets a salary range. And that's what you see in front of you on the screen. This is the proposed 2025 salary ordinance for the Parks department positions. It sets the grade of the position, the annual base salary minimum, which you see there on the left, the annual base salary midpoint, and then the annual base salary maximum. So each individual employee in the city, based on their job description, their salary would fall somewhere in that range. It also describes the maximum biweekly base salary, which is there, the third column from the end. It also talks about each one of our employees being paid the paid annual hours, which is 2080. And then it also sets their status as either an exempt or non-exempt employee. This will go before council, I do believe, for introduction at the next council meeting. If it's not the next one, it would be the following one. But it usually corresponds with the adoption of the budget as well. So with this in front of you, are there any questions about this? Is there any confusion or anything I can help to explain in further detail?
Is this different from the 2024?
There are only two changes with this from the 2024. The one change is our park laborer. Their minimum annual base salary, so the minimum number has been raised a little bit to be more competitive and to get them at a starting point that's more in line with our neighbors, Carmel, Fishers, Noblesville. And then also the other difference in this is the urban forestry specialist, which is a new position that we're asking council to approve this year. And that is a completely new position that we've never had before. So that is new to this salary ordinance as well. So we have to establish a salary or a salary for a new position before we can hire that position. This does not guarantee that position would be hired. That's something that goes through the budget process. But those are the only two differences. The rest of it is pretty much standard. And one didn't change from last year to this year.
So do you base these, I'm just curious, like how you develop the salary ranges? Are they like, is it like compared, like competitive analysis sort of like the market? Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. The other part of it is every so often the city goes through a salary study, and we engage usually with a consultant. And they do a lot of that work. They do it not only locally, but they do it nationally to come up with the grades for each one of these and the salary ranges for each one of these positions. So it should be very comparable to what you see in all of our surrounding communities. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Are there any general board member comments or questions about anything?
Chris, are we on track on our timeline to submit the master plan and adhere to the timeline that you had recommended?
Yeah, we are. We're getting through the Mater Design Group, who is running who is the consultant running our master plan process, is getting all the ducks in a row and everything set, and we are still on track to have a draft turned into the state. The first draft turned into the state, if I remember correctly, by November 14th. So we should be right on track. And that's just the draft. There will still be some steps after the draft goes to the state because they will make some recommendations to us. It'll come back to us, and then the final step is presenting it to the board and the board approving it and adopting it. And then it would go back to the state for final approval in, if I remember correctly, January.
Is there anything we can do to help in regard to that?
At this time, no. I think right now what we're doing is really gathering public input. We're in that stage where we got to have as much input as possible. So if you have neighbors, friends, colleagues, any way of getting it out there to the public so we can get as much input as possible, that would be helpful. But we are in this process of really just gathering information.
Will we see that before it goes to the DNR or?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
There will be another stakeholders meeting that will present a rough draft to not only the Parks Board, but also the council members that were in our first stakeholder meeting as well.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions or comments, I think the meeting is adjourned. Oh, do I have to get a motion?
Yeah, got to get a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Adjourned.
All right.
We don't have to take a vote too, do we? Here we go.